Abu, there has been nothing like this ever in America. This is fantastic, Abu. By Allah. Allah bless you and love you so much. Oh, Allah. What can I say? What can I say? This is the fruit of your labor, Abu. This is the fruit of your labor. And I have never in my life seen something like this. This just leave me speechless.
To my companion, you all and you are my companion.
Power to the people if you understand, sing for me. Yeah. Power to the people if you understand, sing for me. Say you feel me. Power to the people if you understand, sing for me.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the People's Podcast. I'm your host, Muhammad Shahid. Hope all is well. When you tune in, make sure you hit the like and subscribe button. It helps us grow. We appreciate your support. We appreciate the support thus far for the podcast. The support has been overwhelming, although I think we have to remind our listeners to like and subscribe. But we appreciate you. This particular show I've been wanting to do for some time now. I've tried to do it during Black History Month because this is not only Black history but American history. And I tried around March 10th, which would have been my father's birthday. But I didn't get it done. I didn't get it done at those particular the particular time that I wanted to do it in. But I'm here now trying to complete this without getting choked up and emotional because I miss my father so much. So we're going to go down a little history lane, and this season 3 is contribute to my father, Muhammad Atiq, also known as Henry Thomas before he became Muslim. We do say as Muslims, you know, may the Almighty be pleased with him if he has passed away. In the first show, I spoke to my brothers about contributing season 3 to my father, and we all agreed, and we wanted to do a tribute. Throughout season 3, we're going to bring on some people from my family, and help explain to the listener who my father was, and the character of the man that was my father. And some of it, for myself, I'm learning now after he has passed. And, I'm learning so many things about him after he's passed. I already knew. Me and him conversated the years before he was very ill. Diabetes is we can say diabetes is the cause, but, we all have a fixed time. We all have a time where we're going to be called back to our Creator. No one knows when that time is, but our Creator does. And you leave this dwelling. But nevertheless, we spoke a lot prior to him leaving. So it is, that's what I said. I don't want to get choked up because I miss him so much. And not only is he a huge factor in my life, my parents are both of you. My mother and my father is very huge factors. My siblings, my uncles, my nieces, my nephews. And if I speak about my father, I'd be remiss not to mention there's so many people that worked closely with him, including my sheikh, my spiritual guide, who've worked closely with him to achieve something which is historical, which is very historical. And in this time that we live in, there's so many conversations surrounding around self-sufficiency, um, landowner, gardening and eating what you grow. There's so many conversations surrounded around that within the African American community, and it's being done. Not only is it being done now, it was not being done during that time that my father was coming up. So that's why I say I'm giving you the reason. I'm giving you the, for instance, why this story, why this historic, why what makes this American history. What makes this American history is that in that time, this was not being done. What they have done was not being done, or not even being thought about in the African American communities, especially in the ghettos of Brooklyn, New York, especially in the ghettos of Brooklyn, New York. So it brings us to the who we are today. Me, my children, my grandchildren, who we are today. So I'm giving some context on even the reason why I'm here doing a podcast, sharing some parts of my life and sharing some parts of the wisdom that they imparted upon us, through the education and the traveling that they did throughout their life. My father and my sheikh included, both alike, which was his teacher, which was my teacher as well. My sheikh, which was my father's teacher and my teacher as well. So that's the story behind this being history, in American history, because we came from a neighborhood. We were a group of close knitted family members that came from a neighborhood and started a self-sufficiency communities in multiple different states, and are still thriving today. So this is why I say this is American history, and it should be told, it should be talked about, it should be explained thoroughly so that it's understood, and people will know that this is the outline that you're following. This is the outline you're following. This was done years and years before you thought about doing this. So this was the outline that was outlined by Sheikh Saeed Mubarak Ali Shah Aglani. And, if you think about it, if you do some deep thinking about it, it's, you can say it's a genius move, and it is. And it is. So it brings us to, like I said, this point that we at, and it's being American history. I wanted to do it in African American History Month, which was February, a couple of months back. But I didn't get the opportunity to do it. And now here I am right now. We are currently going into the last 10 days of Ramadan. It has been a beautiful Ramadan. I pray that everybody's prayers and du'as that they've been making throughout this Ramadan are answered. And they have, as we all try to, have called on their Creator as much as they can and repented as much as they can for their sins that they have. We are sinners. We're sinners. Nobody's perfect. And we have to continuously repent for the things that we've done, that have either wronged people, wronged ourselves, or wronged our families. And I hope, pray that we have done that during this month of Ramadan. So like I said, we're in the last 10 days of Ramadan. We're almost completed another Ramadan. We have our Eid celebration coming up after these last 10 days. And God willing, that we will enjoy and have a nice festival, I hope and pray. To carry on about who season 3 is being dedicated to, my father, Muhammad Atiq Abdush Shahid, also known as Henry Thomas before he became Muslim. He was born in 1948 in Denmark, South Carolina. Um, he uh, he passed away in December 20th in 2017. Um, but he lived a very interesting life. Um, in 1948, there was still segregation going on. You think about 1948, you could tell 1948. What are some major things that you could think about in 1948? Going on right now in Israel with the Palestinian people in Israel. They say the Palestinian conflict. In 1948, they say when the conflict actually started. So a lot of historical things happened around that time. They had just uh, granted rights for segregation to be removed in the military. There's a lot of things that happened in 1940, but to paint a picture of that time, there was still segregation going on. There was still a lot of strong racism going on, and so you could imagine growing up at that time. Um, his family moved to Philadelphia when he was a child, and moved to Queens, New York, and that's where he played, sports in high school, and he got involved in civil rights movements, and he started to as a teenager he always had he already had that that civil rights movement, activist movement blood inside of him. Like we have to do better as a people. You got to think about the mindset of somebody during that time. Either you were going to be, devoured, or you were going to speak up and speak out. And he chose to be that type of person. So he got into civil rights during his teenage years. Right before he got drafted into the military and sent over to Vietnam. Yeah, now you're a young African American. I'm giving you a description of the mindset, or trying to give you the description of the mindset, because I can't possibly imagine. I can only assume based on my small knowledge of history and historic things that happened within the United States before and during and after the Vietnam War. So you go off to Vietnam as a young African American, you still have some racism, a lot of racism going on in the military at that time. Although in 1948, which is the year he was born, segregation was removed from the military. But you still have, racism going on at that time. Goes to Vietnam, fights in the Vietnam War, injured in the Vietnam War. He kind of told me the story a little bit. I think some shrapnel or a grenade blew up next to him and injured him in his face and his eye. I don't know if you can tell. I think it's one of these eyes right here. It's genetic now. I got like a little dead eye. I don't know if you can tell, but I mean, a lot of his children have that, from the injury during the Vietnam War. It's amazing. Amazing what genetics will do, how they develop, and carry on to your children and your lineage. But injured in Vietnam, and so he got medically discharged. Probably sitting in a hospital. So many things going through your mind. I'm not dead. I'm not, and I can contest. We're not going to talk about my story, but soon. But I could contest. So many things going through your mind. You're almost dead. You're not dead. Now what do? You got to go back home to the U.S. Racism is heavy in the U.S. Protest is heavy in the U.S. because they're protesting the Vietnam War. There's so many things going on. There's so many activist movements. You got the Elijah Muhammad, Malcolm X movement going on at that time. You have white supremacists. You got KKK. You got so many things going on in America. You got the hippies protesting the Vietnam War. There's so many things going on. So what do? Come back to America. You come back to America and you try to decide, how am I going to live my life? What am I going to do? What am I going to contribute? You know, what type of human being am I going to be? So he came back, and this is all research that I've done throughout, from his his companions and his wives and some of his children, some of his older children. This is research that I've done, the mindset of him coming back at that time. So I'm going off of research that I've done and my own research of the things that I've known about my father, which is my hero in every way. Um, but you come back to America. He comes back to America, and you thinking about the state of the African American people, right? You're thinking about the state of the African American people, and you're wondering what I don't like it. I don't want to. What do I do? How do I be a part of history? How do I change the outlook and change the aspect of the African American people, or help in that aspect? My man, can I get involved with? Can I jump in at? That's your mindset, because if you're looking in your neighborhoods, you're living in these neighborhoods, Queens, Brooklyn, wherever you may be, in the five boroughs of New York City, and you're wondering, well, what do I do? Because there's so much activism going on. Malcolm X at this time, and he used to tell me, he said, son, I used to go down to the temple and listen to Malcolm X speak, and you get inspired, but just wasn't touching. It just something was missing. Something was missing. And at this time, if you was a halfway intelligent African American, you were seeking something. You were seeking knowledge. You were seeking the truth. You were seeking to be, better than, you were yesterday. It drove you to becoming a better person, and it drove him to becoming a Muslim. And a friend of his took him to the masjid. He took his shahada at the age of 21. So you think about, from 1941, Vietnam, or the Vietnam War, coming back to America, going through the change of coming back from war, and now taking your shahada, at the age 21, right? So now you're Muslim. Now he's Muslim. Now what do I do? Because now I got to study and learn a different way of life. He was actually coming from a Jehovah's Witness family. So now I got to study a different way of life. Maybe your family members, maybe his family members wasn't too pleased or wasn't too happy with him. I know Jehovah's Witnesses don't really agree with the switch over from Jehovah's Witnesses to becoming Muslim. So maybe he had a little conflict within his family. So now your thoughts are, a little, wild. They're a little wild. They're a little all over the place, because who wants to have conflict with their family, especially the ones that they love? You love your family. Even if you hate them, you love them. So after he took his shahada, he went to college to attain a degree in education and worked in various public schools. So he went to college, obtained a degree in education, and then started working in the public school system. So see, there, you got to think about it. There, what better opportunity to help your African American people than starting right there with the children, with the youth in the public school system. That's the mindset. I'm going to go. Who knows what his thinking was, but I'm actually kind to paint a picture for you and for myself, because what is your thought process like? What is your thought process like after you take your shahada and become Muslim? During that time, you're thinking about the plight of the African American people the entire time, and you're wondering, what can I do? You go to school, get an education. First of all, you got a plan. You have to have a plan. When you start out and you start towards a goal and a path, you have to have a plan. So you have to have a plan. So I'm gonna get education and work in the public school system. I'm gonna help from here. I'm gonna start teaching kids and teaching youth and trying to change their mindset to let them know that not only are they loved, but they are somebody. They're somebody. And they can be better than a basketball player, a football player, or a rapper. Or go to the military. Because in the hood, in the ghetto, what are your options? You thinking, what are your options? So you're in high school, and that's what I'm about to play basketball. I'm going to NBA. I'm about to play football. I'm going to NFL. I'm about to be a rapper. These are your options. So, then he and started Madrasa to Shahidin. This was one of the first Muslim schools in Brooklyn, New York, and he was the principal of this school. This school taught not only myself, but so many other family members and friends of mine for years. For years. And, they created a community life. His thing was a community. It was always community from the beginning. We have to create a lifestyle of community, and that has to be your mindset. Because not only within the small Muslim community in Brooklyn, New York, you had communities around Brooklyn, New York. It was more family orientated. I remember growing up, it was more family orientated. It was more, we used to have a lot of block parties and things like this, and everybody came out. Although Muslims didn't indulge in that type of music, we used to sneak outside or sit outside on our porch and watch everybody on the block skating up and down the block, music, all these things going on, or we was playing Skelly or something. So you think about that time, and you think about his thought process of creating a community lifestyle and teaching the youth and building up this Muslim school. And still at that time, you got to understand, I'm giving you the mindset of my hero, my father, whom I love and miss so much. I'm giving you his mindset of, how, you always thinking about getting better. And for me, I know, so many, myself and my siblings are like him so much. And I'm thinking about my thought process of, thinking of doing something right or doing something that bears fruit and shows progress. You don't want to get into something that you can't complete or you can't do properly. You want to get into something that you're going to do properly. Like you're going to give it 100%. You're going to give it your all. And for me, I know I'm like that. So I could imagine what he was going through. Again, traits, that are passed down through your children and into your lineage. And that was his mindset. So he married a few times, started having kids, started having us. I'm one of the oldest sons, but I got a lot of older sisters that's older than me. So there was a lot more kids born. There was a couple more kids born before me, but started having kids, and as the years gone by, in this Muslim community, they were seekers. They were seeking, looking, searching. I don't know if anyone's doing this now today, but looking, because there's so much going on in society um, um, that's misleading. That's misleading. That's taking you off your focus. That's just interrupting your thought process and your mindset. There's so much junk and stuff going on the internet. and they didn't have the internet back then. So they their thought process was, I have to find something that I can latch onto that has some real sustenance, some the truth. I'm searching for the truth. We are searching for the truth. And that was his thought process, and all the companions around him, their thought processes. We're searching for the truth. We want to know what it is. We all say we worship the Almighty. We all say we worship God and regarding religion. But Islam goes deeper, much deeper than just religion. You know, this is how you live day in and day out. From putting on your socks and shoes to laying in the bed to getting up in the morning to brushing your teeth to loving your family and working and, gaining good, honest money to bring home and feed your family. So in this search, him and his companions continued throughout years, and it brought them to 1981. In 1981, they found and pledged that they would be students to Sheikh Sayyid Mubarak Ali Shah Gilani. And that is where, a lot of my father's, change and transformation became a reality for him. From being born in 48 to 81 and getting to, getting to that point of finding a teacher, a sheikh, a guide, such as Sheikh Sayyid Mubarak Ali Shah Gilani. And when you realize that you have found such a dynamic person, a dynamic human being with extreme intelligence, very educated, wisdom, love and kindness, and is of the family of the Holy Last Messenger, the Prophet Muhammad. You're like one of those gold miners that struck gold. They end up panning for river, and you feel like you found a gold nugget. Now you're onto this gold nugget, and you're like, wow, I'm rich. So again, I'm trying to paint the picture from their perspective. At that time, I was a baby, not a baby, but a couple of years old. I was born in 74, 75. So I was born in around at the time. So you try to think about their mindset that they have, living at that time and understanding what was going on and trying to, one, seek knowledge, and to uplift their people in their community. So after declaring their loyalty to this man and becoming his student, they started to learn Islam in a different light and study more intense. And he began to travel various Muslim countries and seeing other Muslims and other ways of life, and understanding Islam from different perspectives, and gaining gaining knowledge that way, which is a very good way to also obtain knowledge, is traveling and understanding different cultures and understanding different ways of life. If you are a person that have not traveled or don't understand traveling, you should try it. You will pick up on a lot of things, see a lot of different diversities and different people that live their lives, especially outside of the United States, and how people don't have as much, but are more grateful and show more gratitude than people that live in the United States. So, traveling around, learning, educating himself, and coming back and forth to the States, and sitting down amongst him and his companions and their spiritual guide, and coming to a conclusion that, after traveling and seeing different countries and different Islamic points of view from, different regions of the world, you tell yourself, you come back, you say, I can't be a Muslim or practice in this manner in this, in this area, Brooklyn, New York, being the cities. I can't practice Islam in this area, and this is the same. This was repeated and explained to them by their now teacher, who explained to them that they are going to have to leave, the city areas if they want to really, find who they are, find themselves, study, and find out who they are. So they proceeded to do that, and they bought properties in multiple states. Some states didn't buy properties, but they moved out of New York City, and as they migrated to these particular cities, they found properties that were suitable and moved their families up there. Developed these lands, developed these properties as self-sufficient properties and places, built places of worship, and developed them so that their families can live in peace and learn Islam in the manner that is conducive for, any human being. Because the congestion of New York City, the loud music, the pissing on the sidewalk, there's so many things that New York City, and we see it. I mean, we in New York City, we see it. You see it. If you live in New York City, you know exactly what I'm talking about. I have to explain it to you, or I have to break it down for you. If you live in New York City, you know, and you see it. Day in, day out. The hustle, bustle, the everything. How can you focus and practice on anything in that place? But what everybody else is focusing on down there is chasing a bag, as they say. Getting their bag, getting their money. So, yeah, and not to say it's a bad thing. I mean, as you like, each his own. But then move into these communities, and my father actually moved to a community in Hancock, New York, a property in Hancock, New York, which they found in the Catskill Mountains, in the Catskill upstate region of New York State, and developed these properties into their home life. And we moved up there, and we started to create a home life for ourselves, and I contributed to knowing that we were moving. My father had us watch this show or a movie, and the movie was called The Wilderness Family, right? And we didn't know, I do believe that he knew where we were going, or at least that we were leaving New York City and going into a quote unquote country lifestyle, or living in the woods on our own. So we watched this. I don't know if it was a tactic of his to get us, motivated. I don't know. It could have been. I think it was. I think it was something to get him to get us motivated into living a country lifestyle or living in the woods, in the mountains. So we watched this movie called The Wilderness Family, and we were glued to the screen. The Wilderness Family was action packed. I mean, it was about this family who didn't like the hustle, but I think it was in San Francisco, based in San Francisco. They didn't like the hustle and bustle of the city, and they didn't like what was going on in the city, the changes that their kids was going through in the public school system. They didn't like it all. They were very, they were done. They were over it. So they moved to they found some property and they said we're gonna live outside of the city and live off the land. So and they left. They left the cities, went to to the woods and had a very rough time. You know, that's why we all the wilderness family. So they went and they lived in the woods and had a rough time fighting bears and wolves and getting attacked by various animals. And I mean, we watched it glued. So we were already in the mindset of, man, we want to be the wilderness family. So he kind of let us come up with that on our own. And we like, we about to become the wilderness family. So it's like, but it wasn't as glamorous as we thought it was going to be, like the wilderness family, like the movies make it. The movies make it glamorous. It wasn't as glamorous as the wilderness family, but it was a teachable moment for ourselves, and he used it as a teachable moment to us to build us character, to build us structure, understanding, and put us in the mindset of understanding who we are, finding out who we are, because it's the most important thing. And people say nowadays, everybody says, everybody knows it. I want to know who I am, or I'm trying to find out who I am. You're trying to find yourself, aren't you? Aren't we all? So it put us in that mind frame, and that doing so gave us, and this is where I'm giving you the context of myself and my siblings, of the way we are and why the way we are. And not only that, like I said, why this podcast? Why am I here? Why am I here speaking on this podcast? We live in a time, not as much during that time of him growing up from 1948 on down, where segregation was heavy to it started to minimize. It started to, mellow out. But was still prevalent, but started to mellow out. And now we're in a time where it's a lot more mellow, still prevalent, but a lot extremely mellow. And but there's other things that plague us and plague the society. And I wanted to highlight him because him being my hero, because it gave me the same mindset. Although I went through my troubles as a youth and had to learn for myself the hard way, and not being a good son while he's doing all these things, thinking about trying to uplift his community, and I'm not being the son that he needs me to be, and going through the troubles that I went through. But still, I paid a close attention to him. I paid close attention to him. That's why I say he's my hero, because I paid close attention to his detail, his dedication to something that I didn't understand as a youth, his commitment to something that was much bigger than I can possibly imagine. And you think about it. This is why I tell you it's American history. You think about a large group. Picture this. Picture your family being a family of 30, 40, 50 people, and you all came together collectively in 1981, 82, 83 in New York City, and left New York City to go live in an unfamiliar environment, without the proper, necessities that you may, or the proper comforts that you may have within a city lifestyle. Imagine that. Imagine going through that. What type of character would that build inside of you? So I say that to tell you what type of character it built inside of me and my siblings, and my community, and my nieces, and my nephews, and my uncles, and my, grandfathers, and my aunties, and everybody within my community. You know, learning yourself, understanding who you are, and practicing Islam in an environment that, was amazing. Building places of worship so that you can practice Islam in an environment that's undistracting. There's no music playing outside. There's no urine smell in the hallways as you going up and down the elevator. There's no gunshots you got to duck from the window, or a stray bullet may hit. There's none of this going on. So you don't have this distraction. So you have less of a distraction, and you can find out and learn who you are. Imagine that. And I want those that are listening, people that are listening to this, you picture it yourself. You put that picture into your mind frame and try to get to understand the mind frame of a person that's going through that, such as myself or you. But, I had to go through my troubles and learn the hard way. I'm hard-headed, so I got to learn the hard way. Maybe others are hard-headed too. You got to learn the hard way too. Maybe you're going to learn the hard way. Hey, nothing wrong with learning the hard way. Either way, you're going to learn or you're not going to learn. So, they find themselves in this strange environment, and they start to begin their studies. They start to begin their understanding, of studying of Muslim culture, African American Muslim culture, and then begin to spread Islam about the. This is why I wanted to do this in African American history, but it's no time better than the present. It's being done, according to Allah's will, as time sees fit. But spreading, history about our ancestors and where we came from. And like I said in the podcast, African American history is rich about where we came from as slaves. So all of this time, going back to his birth and then to now, and then, moving out of the cities and into here, your mindset is this whole mindset. So you already had the mindset of that the plight of the African American people, which disturbed him, the troubles, that plagued the public school system, then moving to a Muslim school and teaching Muslim students and trying to, help develop their lifestyle too as well, and then leaving New York City and then going into a different environment. So your mindset is, you're either all in or you're not. And the only way to be, if you committed to this, if you committed to that, then you're all in. You're all in. You have to be, or you're going to fade out because the going gets rough, so to speak. You know what I'm saying? And if the going gets rough, the tough get rougher, or you know what I'm saying? I don't know, but and after doing that, traveled again, various Muslim countries again, but he got together with another group of Muslims to try to establish something called the American Muslim Veterans Association, and the idea was to bring Muslims together from different walks of life. African American Muslims, Muslims in general that served in the military, and allow them to camaraderie and communicate and build and seek help and seek counseling and talk to one another, write letters to one another, but also show that there were and are still a strong showing of Muslims in the military, and how they serve their country, how they serve their country. To get rid of the stigma of Islam is sometimes have this this stigma that Islam is bad, and that's not the case at all whatsoever. So they started the association, tried to reach other veterans, but it halfway got up off the ground. It moved up and down. It fluctuate. People get old. Diabetes was taking a lot of those guys. Agent Orange, a lot of those guys was going through different medical situations, and from the things that they were being, you know, uh, tested with in Vietnam, and the war torn mindset, killing and so much death going on around you. I mean, it's going to affect you. It's going to affect you in a way that can really alter your mental state. And with him going through all that and trying to again trying to help his fellow brother, and trying to develop this Muslim Veterans Association that was going to help. He began to really settle in after that. Everything was about activism. Everything was about spreading Islam. Everything was about teaching your fellow brother, building your fellow brother up. To the time that he just to me he was tired. The diabetes started to really wear at him, and started to really take a toll on him. So I say all of this to say, you think about the history of the African American people from the time of slavery on till now, and you have various heroes within the African American community, such as Malcolm X and Martin Luther King and others, so many others, that have affected change within their community. And the reason why I say he's my hero, because he affected change in a way within a small community of African Americans at that time that didn't understand who they were. Is this not American history? Is that not American history? Is that not upliftment? Is that not civil rights movement? Is that not growth? Is growth not what we're trying to do daily? This is what we're trying to do daily, as a whole, as a people, as humanity. So they got together within a group of themselves and moved a large group of community to areas where that they can find some mental stability through Islam, through the practice of Islam, and understanding it in its totality, in letter and spirit. Along the way, being guided by amazing man, amazing sheikh, a loving sheikh, a loving and respecting, and the whole time being guided. The whole time. And I quote there's never been nothing like this in America. This is American history. This is American history, and I only hope, the reason why it took me so long is because I only hope now that I'm doing it some justice right now. I'm giving you bits and pieces and bits and pieces and bits and pieces, and this is a continuous stories, not story. I don't want to say story. I'm trying to use the word story, but it's a continuous story. It's a continuous historical event. It's a continuous historical event, which we are now sitting on 3-4 generations of young African Americans, doctors and lawyers, tradesmen and engineers, professionals who didn't even begin to think about schooling, who didn't even begin to think about college. Although you have a lot of individuals that have come out of the ghettos and out of the hoods and achieved high levels of education, but that's individually. I mean, you think about collectively. You think about a large group of African Americans collectively changing their mindset, changing that slave mentality mindset that was developed in the ghettos and plagued us for so many, how long? That plagued us for how long? Think about when you couldn't get an education because of segregation, when you couldn't vote because of segregation. So, is this not American history? Is this not our all history? This is not something that, needs to be researched and explored and written down and shared constantly. And again, I pray that I'm doing this some justice. I'm here within the last 10 days of Ramadan, the blessed month of Ramadan, making prayer that the Almighty accept my prayer, my forgiveness, and the prayers of others around me, and strengthen our bond as brotherhood and sisterhood, and keep us together as a community, keep us together as a whole, as humanity. Wow, is this really true, Ismail? Is that really true? What you went through, what happened to you, and it's not what happened, it's what we've been blessed with. What we have been blessed with as a group of people. And this is my history, which comes and stems from my father and so many others on down. This is the history. Muhammad Atiq Shahid, the lineage and the foundation he left and laid for us. And Sheikh Said Mubarak Ali Shah Gilani and his family, and the lineage and the foundation they laid and set for us as well. The history is real. The history is real. And it's amazing. Somebody told me one time, they said, this is like a true live rags to riches story. It's like a true live rags to riches story. I said, you are absolutely correct. You're absolutely correct. And it should be told. And I pray that I'm giving it enough context that you can understand a little bit of what happened, a little bit of what the history is about. I pray that I'm doing that, and I feel I should be doing a lot more. We should be doing a lot more, uplifting our brothers and sisters within our communities that we live in, or going back to the community that we came from and bringing more people out of there, or having them gain some type of understanding of who they are, and then letting them make the decision themselves, whether they want to stay in that environment or leave that environment, because it's happening. It's happening. How many African Americans are getting together in small communities, all over Georgia and all over Virginia, everywhere else, and developing properties and lands on their own. This is the outline. From 82, 81, 82, 83. That's the outline. What African American community was doing at that time. And now everybody's doing it. Guess what outline you're following? So yes, this is American history. This is why we wanted to explain the history of this community and the history of, you know, where I came from, and you know, my father, my hero, and dedicating season 3 to him as well. So I pray that I did enough to explain, you know, this history, this American history. I pray I did enough. And my father's missed by so many. I spoke to a brother the other day that I haven't spoke to in so long, out of Philadelphia. And when I spoke to him, he said, "Man, I miss your father." He says, he used to call me, talk to me, just talk. You know, there was no judgmental. He didn't judge me. He didn't ask me. You know, if I expressed something to him, he would tell me, you know, my wrongs. You know, he wouldn't mince his words on that. But, you know, he would talk. You know, he appreciated the phone call that he got. But this is the, you know, in speaking to my father in his last days or his last years, you know, this is the mentality I got from him. I picked up from him. I heard it from him. I heard it from his own mouth. And when he told me, you know, before he left, he said, "Revive the history. Revive the history." What history is that? African American history. The history of this community. The history of growth. The history of generational growth. That's been here since that time. Since the coming of Sheikh Said Mubarak Ali Shah Gilani in 81. That's the history. Revive the history. Revive the African American. Help the African American people. We all have to understand who we are. We got to start beginning to understand who we are. How can we do that in those environments? It's very difficult. It's very difficult to raise children in a New York City environment. Although people do it, it's extremely difficult. So I'm here to. I just try to give it enough context and understanding, you know, who my father was and how much he meant to so many people, and the lineage and, you know, that he's left. You know, my brothers and sisters, my mothers, everybody that miss him so much. You know, I wish, you know, people, some people that do tune in and listen to the podcast, you know, knew of him or had some small interaction with him. Charismatic, very intelligent, you know, and I thank the Almighty. I can only continuously thank the Almighty that, you know, he gave me a father such as this man. He gave me, you know, a teacher such as his teacher, his sheikh and my sheikh. I can only continuously thank the Almighty. I can never give enough. I can never say enough. I can never, the words can't match what my heart really feels. They can't match what my heart really feels. So I try to give a little bit, you know, a little bit of words of trying to get you to understand what it was, what this history is. So, in closing, we tonight fed our small community here. Right now, we're here in South Carolina, York, South Carolina. We fed our small community breakfast, iftar, and fed the people on behalf of my father, you know, who's means so much to so many people. So we make prayer and dua for him that the Almighty, you know, love and forgive any mishaps and mistakes he's made in his life, and increase the love that his lineage, his children have in their heart for the Almighty and their dedication to uh, speaking and seeking and living, you know, a lifestyle of commitment and dedication to Islam. We thank you so much for listening to the podcast. It's been a pleasure. It's been a pleasure to be able to speak about this to those that are listening and will listen. So we thank you for listening to the People's Podcast. I'm your host, Ismail Shahid. Assalamu alaikum.